hot seat feels like, of course.
There we go. We've got Miss Kanye Mdluli in the house. Hey, Miss Mdluli, Lizzie, and Lulu. How you doing, guys?
So, Manda, Lulu is a mystery attendee. And they've tried to keep themselves mystery, but they say they've never missed any of the sessions. So I was like, okay,
Wow.
cool.
Wow.
Whatever missed. So even the message they sent to me was anonymous. I was like, okay. I said, look, as long as you come and you support. They say they use their content now in their job, so they can't be seen to be, what do they say in hip hop, biting from us. So that's why they have to be incognito. I said, bite as much as you want.
Bite as much as you want. We're not selling this stuff. It's free already. So buy it. Actually, we can even do better. We can even coach you. You can give us a call. We'll give you the lowdown.
I said this meet, this whatever. They were like, no, I would rather stay incognito. So I was like, okay, cool. Keep coming. After every time they come, I'm like, hey, hi Lulu, because I was like, this person has been there she's attended 25 sessions.
Wow. Okay, so Lulu, listen, we've actually got a cup here for you. So we need to get it to you somehow. We don't do virtual. So we need to hand over.
You need to give us the address.
Yeah, we need to come and deliver.
Wow.
Yes, Rumbi. Hey, Rumbi, how you doing? I hope you didn't give Makgola a tough time, back in the days.
Manda, then you don't understand the relationship we had with Makgola. She was the big boss. There was no one giving Makgola tough times. From us. I don't know.
Left the tough times to done.
Anything about her, I don't know. We just said from us.
That was your perception of the power dynamics.
Makgola,
I never imposed my office on anybody, huh?
Didn't we make your life easy?
No, you guys were always there. Solutions, always engaging. I always enjoyed you guys. Always enjoyed engaging with you guys.
No stress, right?
Yeah. I never give you a hard time.
No, and you were a big cheerleader. You got me to take some risk by just the encouragement you actually had put, which were very interesting. But that's a story for another day.
Yeah, I thought you guys could have been bigger than where things got, but that's a different story for different people at a different time. Yeah.
Good. What does Lulu say? The webinar has changed my life. I haven't learned so much. I have learned so much. Can't wait to hear from Makgola tonight.
Here.
Wherever you are, I don't know if you're in South Africa, you are from across Africa or around the world. We encourage you. Please bring more royalty, bring more people. Makgola would definitely change your life.
So we don't know anything about Lulu, nothing except that.
Let's ask her to say more.
She's in debunked. Is she serious? Okay. I don't know why I think Lulu's a woman.
Are you an entrepreneur? Are you an entrepreneur? Are you in corporate? I know you say you use our stuff. Where do you use it? It would be nice to know how you actually use it. So put it in the chat. Hi, Rumbi.
We want more people to copy. So please tell us how you're using it so we can tell more people to copy.
Corporate trying to climb the ladder. Okay.
I incorporate trying to come and okay. What level are you? Are you C-suite? Are you senior executive, professional? Now we've made the interview about Lulu. You
guys,
see?
Of course we are curious. We can solve this mystery tonight.
You know, there's always this curiosity if you don't know somebody, right?
it feels like a movie.
Like, huh?
It feels like a movie. It's like we're trying. Those investigative movies. Done. The missus loves those movies, those series, by the way. So I'm like, these are like the best cops. They know accounting, they know finance, they know ballistics, they know engineering, they know technology. I'm like, if only in real life we had people like these.
They're very smart people. Okay, it's 5 past. We need to get into it, Manda. We have a special guest who's got a lot of insight. I think she's got a very interesting journey. So we would want to give her the platform to actually talk about it. So I think we should get started. What do you think, Manda?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, so by way of introduction, my name is Dan Mukosa. Obviously, the host of, or the co-host of the Ordinary Extraordinary webinar. Always looking forward, excited about it. It energizes me. More specifically, coming from the fact that I have a passion around leadership development. And as I kind of sort of been announcing the last couple of weeks, I'm really focusing around helping executives in an operation perspective, really helping them trying to close the gap between potential and the current performance. So if you really believe you can achieve more than or you can push beyond where you are, I'm somebody who's really passionate to have a conversation around that, really helping leaders build their confidence, making them effective, making them literally superstars in their own right.
No, guys, Dan's pitch keeps on getting better. You know, if I had Thibaut touches horns, I would just be pressing the horns. You know, no, Dan, I'm learning.
I was with him last week Friday.
Oh, was he as excited?
He is a ball of energy, that guy. Like, it's crazy. Anyway,
all right,
cool.
Right, everyone. So my name is Manda. I'm not a executive coach, but I am a business consultant. So everything that Dan does for people, I do for organizations. You know, so if you're keen on that, I'm your guy, right, Makgola? But anyway, moving on. In this platform, this is something that I enjoy, passionate about, growing people, developing people, particularly I think people who come from disadvantaged backgrounds, because I think that we all have potential, and it's around platforms like these and hearing from guests like Makgola that we keep on growing and building each other.
Cool. And just to go into the kind of the housekeeping, this is the webinar, so we're live. We know we are encouraging you guys to please chat, put the information. If you get any insights, any nuggets, put them on. If you want to just tell us what you're up to, what you even do, or what service you're providing, we want to start encouraging people to really participate and creating a platform where people could actually come and network and actually leverage each other's skills and services and offering and products. So please put whatever you have to for us to actually know who you are. We are open. Please slide in our DMs on LinkedIn. So we open for networking. And lastly, we live on our YouTube channel, on Biotech channel. So you can watch this live. And then you can also follow us on our Facebook channel, Ordinary Extraordinary.
Fantastic. And we don't derive any commercial value from this, but we are grateful for our sponsors, Biotech Africa, for sponsoring this platform so that we can have this webinar. So thank you very much for that. Dan, this lady, many things.
Yes. You know, I always give interesting facts, and I've got quite a number, but then the lady's in a new role, and we don't want to start compromising her, right? But instead we want to
we must take it easy.
By way of introduction, right? By way of introduction, I think I've known Makgola for, this has to be 20 years. 99, 2000, somewhere there, right? 99, 2000. And we started together, and after starting together, we went and kind of worked for the same company. Looking at the story she kind of told midweek around not wanting to be management, what was very interesting, Manda, is that one of my big interactions with Makgola, she used to work for one of the power stations at the time, I think it was Matla. And she was trying to become a manager. So it was very interesting to hear that story of, she didn't want to be a manager. And out of frustration, there was a pivot which happened. We left ESCOM, went to play for the opposition. Well, there's not really opposition, but opposition in Mpumalanga there. Came back to ESCOM as a manager for a bid. And then next thing, Makgola was my colleague. Next minute, she's my boss. Our CEO runs down to go and fetch her. Like they used to go and line up, like the way when presidents come, guys. That's what they used to do. And maybe she could tell us that story, how that feels when people come and line up to just welcome you. But it's been an amazing journey, I think, to see for a colleague you are actually with from Varsity, just seeing their growth, and also just working with them. I mean, before the show started, we were just talking about my engagement with her, kind of in our previous role, where it was centered around working together, and she was one of the big promoters for something I used to do and drive in the organization. Gave me a lot of encouragement, a lot of confidence to do what I was doing. So I guess I'll kind of attribute my ability to kind of take my chances somehow to just people like Makgola, who give you the encouragement and who push you and don't realize that just by virtue of the encouragement, give you or play this mentorship role, which gives you the confidence to do things which an average person won't necessarily do. So that's what Makgola kind of sort of really is to me, with the journey we've actually been the last 20 years of actually knowing each other and actually engaging. So with that introduction, Makgola, I want you to take it away and tell us, where did this journey of being Madam MD come from? And I know in the poster we put executive extraordinary, yes, you are. And you need to tell them. Whoever them is, tell them.
Dan, I thought you were going to give me my minute, you know.
Go for it, man. Also give introduction too.
So by the way, guys, so some of the things that you probably did not know about Makgola, she is an amazing golfer. We still to play with her. So we've sort of been holding back. We've sort of been holding back because we don't want to be put to shame. But another thing, Dan, she was the Mail and Guardian top, what is it? What was the word again? Top young...
200 young South Africans.
Top 200 young South Africans. Guys, it doesn't get better than that. So you are really hearing from somebody who has created value in the market, who has been recognized by people outside her group. And as you know, the Mail and Guardian is not the paper it's not the other paper that does not exist anymore. So, but we won't go into details around that. But I think that she's somebody who really we've engaged in the industry. I used to host, a utilities roundtable where she would come and executives from the top utilities and cities in the country would be sitting and listening, right, to the wisdom that she oozes. So that is just my short introduction, Dan. Thank you for giving me that 1 minute.
Now let her give her story, her version. So Makgola, where does it start? The platform is yours. The space is yours.
Yeah. So evening, Dan, Manda, Tawela, evening to everybody who's on the webinar. So Dan, I'm not sure what format you really want to do. You want me to speak about my pivots? How much time do you want me to speak? I don't think we actually agreed on this.
You have about 35 to 40 minutes. Go for it. Obviously, you speak and we'll engage and talk to you. Coming from government, you're a politician, right? You can just go on a tangent and talk about something which is relevant, and we'll just keep quiet and listen.
She might start campaigning as well. We just don't know for who.
This is not a bad thing. You should be encouraging it. So evening, everyone. My name is Makgola. I always introduce myself as a villager from Limpopo, a villager from the north who somehow became an engineer. I relate a lot to being a villager. It's one of the happiest memories I have about my life growing up in that space. And it's a grounding space that I always go back to when things get hectic in the big city, or when I just need to rest, or when I just want to draw some energy. That's the space I go to. So I relate really, first of all, as an engineer, as a villager from Limpopo. My homeboy Manda over here. I know he doesn't tell people in Joburg he's from the village. So I think my journey to where I am today, and I think sometimes I struggle with the labels, but starts from my very early childhood. I grew up in a big family, 4 siblings, 2 parents who were teachers. And my parents really invested a lot in our upbringing, in our education. My father always gave and gives us the confidence of, the people that we are. He affirms us all the time. And growing up and being able to get, into better schools, I think that really gave a good anchor in terms of, the kind of self image I've had growing up as a person, and really being able to have confidence to express myself very early on in life. And I think that's very important for young people, and to be given the confidence to believe that you as a person, no matter how young you are, you can express yourself, you can have an opinion, you can ask questions, and that there's always safe spaces to ask questions. So for me, that was one of really the greatest anchors I've had or pivots I've had in my life, is being given that opportunity to speak freely, given the opportunity to learn from the best possible environment. And I think it took a lot of sacrifice from my parents to give us that, and I'm always grateful for that. Probably the second biggest pivot I've had in my life was post that is making a career choice. In the sense that, I got into an academic training that has allowed me to explore the world a bit more broader. But making the choice itself, was not as simple. But I think getting into university, studying engineering, was a big anchor for me. I think I went into that space thinking that I'm the smartest of the kids, and I can only study engineering. All the other stuff is easy. That was my attitude. And less about what I understood, really what engineering was about. But it gave me a lot of confidence. It gave me a good systems thinking as a person, and it enabled me. And I think being thrust before I went to university, I lived in Limpopo, I studied in Limpopo, then I go to varsity outside the province, diversity of people, diversity of views. I always tell people that when I went to varsity, I didn't even know there were Muslims. Like, that's how closed out my world was. So I'm thrust into this environment. It expanded my understanding, my view of life, diverse people from different backgrounds, being independent, being away from home. And I think it really helped me to develop into this really independent person, but also being able to appreciate, people, heterogeneous groups, people that are not like me, people that think differently from me, but being able to engage people that think differently from how I think, which I think has enabled me to be able to engage in different forums where I am now. And then from there, I went into the workplace. I struggled with the transition from academia to work, because I really couldn't place what I was learning to the work environment that I went in. It was a completely different experience, leaving a university and walking into a power station. You don't really see a lot of the stuff you learn in that environment. It's real life. It's different. It's a lot of the things that you studied, you don't experience in that environment. Experience counts a lot more. So you have to rely on people who have been in that environment for 10 years, 20 years, and having the humility to say, I'm putting my degree in a drawer. I'm going to spend the next 18 months learning how this environment works. I'll refer to what I've studied, but in the main, you want to learn to people who have been here. They've been producing power for the last, whatever, X years. So there's things that they know. So you must have that humility. And I think for a lot of us leaving university, we thought we had the template, and we just needed to get into an environment and plug and play this, and then we know what we're doing. And that transition is quite humbling, to realize that experience counts for a lot, and you must be humble enough to be able to learn and to be able to ask questions and ask of others to assist you, no matter how much less educated you think they are compared to yourself, and so forth. So I got into that environment. I learned a lot. It is intimidating. I'm a village girl from Limpopo. The experienced guys are Afrikaans guys who have been doing this for a long time. Their home language is Afrikaans. Half the time they're talking to each other in that language. Your confidence plummets the first couple of months. You have to find a way to say, what are my gaps? why am I not following the story? Why, am I adding value? How do I ensure that I listen a bit more, I read a bit more? I'm humble enough to be able to, get an opportunity, for somebody else to teach you. And yeah, I think that took some doing. You'd wake up at 2 a.m., you're called to the station because there's a fault. You arrive at the station, you don't know where you are in the station. And, you are the engineer. People expect a lot from you. People expect you to know what's going on. They know actually what's going on. And you have to find a way to collaborate so that you have to learn to collaborate so that, you can add value in terms of what you understand from an engineering perspective, but then also be able to understand from people who have been around. There are things that you won't find in drawings. You should, but you don't find in drawings on stations, and you only learn from people who have been there for a period of time. So for me, that was a good grounding experience. My training coming into the power plant environment was a good grounding experience. I learned a lot. I was always a curious person. I learned a lot more about how, the business functions. But I always had an apprehension about management, like Dan says, and it's quite interesting that he has a different memory to this. I had an apprehension about management. I associate management with politics. When I went to varsity, my parents set me down. They're like, stay out of politics. People who do politics never finish school. And I went to varsity and I found these guys who have had, they've been in every faculty. There's student politics, they've been in every faculty, and they just never leave university. And I saw this, and so I took the lesson. If there's a strike, my parents tell me, get under your bed, stay under your bed, and stay out of those. And of course, we interacted with a lot of student leaders. We see them today, and it's always interesting to exchange experiences of what was going on in your environment at the time, because we were in the same space, but we were all dealing with different challenges at the time. So yeah, when I finished my training, I had an apprehension about management. I thought, I wanted to be more technical, a specialist, because I had a different perception of what I thought engineering would be about. And at some point I had a senior engineering role. I left and I went to pursue what I thought was the right thing for me at the time. I joined Sasol. I always tell people I dislike my Sasol experience for many reasons, but primarily because really I perceived it as it was a black appointment with really no clear responsibilities that I was afforded. I was earning good money, but I just didn't think this was good for my growth.
By the way, I don't know if both you and Manda know about this about me. I worked for Sasol for 2 days and I resigned.
2 days?
Because I joined and I was told there's no raw, there's no deliverables, we wing it, we figure it out. Then you'll be told when your career progress and stuff. I thought to myself, this is what my mentor tells me about. And I actually resigned and I said, I'm done.
Wow.
They're like, but why? I'm like, no. I was told if I come to such an ambiguous role, nothing is going to happen. 10 years from now, we'll still be arguing and I'll be told, no, you need 1 more year to get to the next level. But anyway.
Yeah. Wow. No. Okay. I'm much stronger than you. I always thought I had a record because I lasted
no, 2 days I was done.
I lasted 18 months, but I don't have good feelings about being there. I mean, I made great friends being there, but yeah. Sorry, Manda.
Guys, unfortunately, I didn't work for Sasol. I tried to get the bursary, but I didn't make it. So, I don't have any interesting stories to tell. But Makgola, I'm understanding some interesting things that are coming from your experience. I think the first one is around, seeing your education not as the answer for everything, but it's a matter of how do you add value by bringing your experience and your education together, right? And I think that has been something that a lot of us, we are in university, we're doing Java, we're doing, digital signal processing, we're doing electromagnetic induction systems and all these things. Then you come into the workplace and you expect to just see these things come alive. And I think that that's a very interesting point. But now you've now in Sasol, I assume that you come back to ESCOM. what were we understand the drivers, but then what was the driver to then move to your next pivot?
So I mean, so maybe just to step back on your first comment is that making a career choice for me was a very weird experience, and I'm sure it was a weird experience for many people. And I pray to God it's no longer that. It was. So first, it's about my perception of what being an engineer would entail. So it's like what 1994 when you're making this choice. No, 98. You're making this choice. It's from a textbook. Somebody has written a career guidance textbook. This thing is as rigid as it comes. Yet the world is changing every single day, right? So you read a book and it's like, okay, you want to be an engineer. This is what an engineer does. And then, so you walk around with these thoughts because you've really never met a real life engineer in your life. At best, you've met a teacher, you've met a lawyer, you've met a nurse, but an engineer, I had not met one when I made that decision. So you make that decision and then your perception is you're going to go into school. When you finish, you're going to be an engineer. An engineer, it means you're going to be in a lab, you're going to be doing design work. And I think that, it really deprives you of the opportunity to dream a bit more broadly, because if you go into any corporate, you'll find lots of engineers doing many things. I mean, in my current environment, one of my senior bosses is actually an HR person leading an engineering organization. So I think for a lot of us, because of how rigidly we think about careers, we struggle with reimagining how we can add value in organizations because we are stuck with this academic training, and a lot broader than how we think about it. I think, so for me to leave Sasol and move back to Eskom in a management role is lots of conversations with mentors about what a career is, what it entails, what does it not entail, what leadership is, what management is, what are the possibilities. And for me to just ask some of the questions, because I mean, some of these things, you really figure them out in your head on your own until you have a conversation with someone who's walked that journey and they can unpack a conversation for you. So, I decided, so everybody kept saying, yeah, you've got leadership capability, you should get into a management role, indeed. I'm like, yeah, management leadership, now I sit here today, I'm like, not exactly the same thing, but okay. So I decided to apply for this management role. I got into it. I greatly enjoyed it. I greatly enjoyed working with people. I had a lot of trainees in my team. I enjoyed giving guidance, coaching, and it just grew from there. But I was also very clear that I didn't want to have 20 years in operations at the time, that I wanted to have a broader experience of the energy sector. So when the opportunity came for me to move into government, that's what I did. I said, let me go understand how government thinks about the sector. How does government set policy? And I was very clear in my head that I was staying for 2 years in government. I was going to learn a lot. I'm not a natural public servant, government official. I'm not going to last more than 2 years. And 7 years later, I was still there.
Makgola, can we take a step back, right?
Yes.
So you have this management position, you're working as a manager, and you say you're enjoying it, right? And then you move to government because of as government brings a new context. You say there's regulation, there's policy and stuff. How did the opportunity present itself? Were you just looking? Were you headhunted? Was it something where you were deliberate and said, I took these 3-4 steps and they enabled me to move my environment? How did you pull that off?
So I mean, firstly, one step back. So the reason I wanted to expand my experience beyond operations is because I had just completed my MBA. And I knew then, as I was doing my MBA, that I wanted to get into the business side of things, how the business works, how the business runs, because then I became, quite curious and quite keen to get into managing and running the business. And I knew that's where ultimately I would want to go. So, and I said, for me to make me the most competent leader to maybe lead this organization or any other similar organization, I would need to be a lot more rounded than what I am. And I don't think, 20 years of operations alone is going to be sufficient. At least that's what I believe in. And I know there's a lot of people who've had careers like that and they've done very well for themselves. So, in the last 5 years, when things were getting tough in government, Dan, I asked myself that question: on what Sunday did I pick up the paper and apply for this job? I wish I remembered that moment and the conversation I had with myself. But I was generally looking, and I happened to see this in the paper. I mean, even within the business, I was looking at other opportunities, but I was actively looking in the paper, and I came across an opportunity, and it just seemed to be the perfect fit. And yes, it was great fun. But yeah, when it got tough, it was, how did I decide that this was the right opportunity? But I have absolutely no regrets. It's been quite a great journey for me. It's given me quite a wide exposure, not just energy policy making. I have had an experience to interact with lenders, as I was saying earlier on. You interact with, I mean, at government level, you interact at all levels. I don't know if I would have ever had an opportunity to interact at the president's level if it wasn't for this opportunity. So it's been a very fulfilling role. And I think, every professional should invest 2 years in the public sector. You have a much, much deeper appreciation of how the country functions. When you complain, you complain with context. And also, you can also say, I've tried to fix it. So even when you offer solutions, it's things that you yourself would have tried to do at a point in time. It was an incredible stay in government. I've loved it.
Cool. So you planned for 2 years, and then it's 7 years later. Yeah. What happened? What changed?
Nothing changed. So I arrived in government in 2014. There was a change in government like 6 months later, because we went into elections. Yeah, it was elections in 2014. And my two immediate bosses, well, my one boss and my one colleague left immediately. So I got into a new role within a year, acting in that role. So which felt like growth. So like I've done 1 year of what I came to do. So now I've had a promotion, even though I was acting, and it's a role I acted in for about 5 years. So, and I was a lot more engaged. I was very, very engaged in that role. I was, deep in trying to find solutions for some of the challenges that we're having in the country. And it was really fulfilling that at the time. And I had a very strong sense of, I had a very strong sense of country rather than a strong sense of self at the time. And I felt that, I'm going to put myself secondary to this. And I really did do for the last 5, 6 years, where my time, my energy was about what I was doing in government and putting in the time and the energy to try and find solutions and deal with it. So it I kind of woke up one day and it was like 7 years. And in that 7 years, I never had anything in front of me that I thought would be worth me walking away from this and going to do it. It was a fulfilling, it was a really, really fulfilling period. So it didn't feel like 7 years, but yeah, at some point, something else came up and then I left.
Okay.
Wow. So then, okay, you're in government. This great opportunity has come up. I think 2 questions on my side. What was the thing that made you feel that you would enjoy a role like that? And number 2, what were the things that you reflected about yourself, which were the traits which you felt that would help you, to be successful in this new current role?
Yeah, I mean, I think firstly, so probably one of the reasons I also stayed as long as I did is because in my mind and how I perceived myself and how I perceived my next step was that I needed to find a better role in the sector, within the energy sector. And that's what I was always looking out for. And one of the conversations I had with one of my mentors, Montla, was, you are a leader, you're not a sectoral expert. I don't know why you are married to this space that you are in that way. You add a lot of value, you're good at what you do, but you're a leader and you can function in any space. And then, then I got approached with this role and somebody said, would you consider this? And my initial reaction was maybe not. And it was like more conversations. And I looked at the role and I thought, this is something that I could explore. I mean, I'm not completely oblivious to rail and logistics as a sector. I'm not a newcomer per se. It's always been in our portfolio. So I had a view and exposure to it. I think what gave me the confidence was I had a strong network in that environment that I knew would be quite supportive. I knew I'm good in terms of adaptation to new environments, getting to know people, but also just having the humility to learn. And this is a steep learning experience for me, but it's something that I've enjoyed. The last 57 days have been both learning, but also, assessing the environment and trying to see how you add value, how you strengthen the environment such that, you can get more value for the people I work for. Yeah, so I think it was a combination of those things, and really just dealing with my narrow perceptions of what I thought my career should look like and what my next step is, and letting go of those thoughts because they were really holding me back. And I believe that, this is the next step, and that's what I must be searching for, and that's what I've been searching for the last 5 years, and I couldn't see it. But yeah, eventually, I think through lots of conversations, mentorship, and self-reflection, I decided to take this step, and it's been greatly rewarding.
I want to ask two questions which you've mentioned, right? So which kind of brought you to where you are. You mentioned networking, right? Tell us, and I'm going to make it blunt, what is networking in your context and how did it work for you? You mentioned mentorship. Tell us, what is mentorship and what does this mean? So for somebody out there who's not aware or who's not really sure of these things, what would you tell them? What are the steps you tell them, or the things you'd actually highlight in your experience, which will be like, this is important for you to actually do and maybe start doing these steps going forward?
Yeah, mentorship was always an awkward thing for me at a point in time, where my narrow understanding was, okay, you find somebody you like, they kind of do what you what you think you want to do next, and you approach them, you have a conversation, and then could you please mentor me? And then they say yes, and then you arrive at their office and it gets very awkward. So some of my early experiences were like that. Some of my early experiences about mentorship were like that. So, I mean, mentorship for me is about having persons or people that you can have a safe space to have conversation with. So when it comes to mentorship, for me, chemistry is very important, but not chemistry in a friendly manner, but chemistry in the sense that you can be comfortable and have a conversation, and also be open to having the feedback, because you also know it comes from a place where this person has your good intentions in mind. So I've struggled with mentorships where I talk to complete strangers. Most of the mentors I have is not that it's people I know, but it's people I've come to know because we either have, we're in the same network. I'll get to network now, but we're in the same spaces and circles, and I can have a conversation. They would have a context of, what I'm going through or what I'm trying to do, and it would make the conversation a lot more productive. Of course, sometimes you meet, a random person, and if you're lucky, you do get that chemistry and you can have conversations. But I've been in very awkward conversations, and I think also because sometimes a person could be willing to mentor, but they might not have, maybe let me say, natural skills, or they might not even have the formal understanding of what they should be helping, because the responsibility is two ways, what they should be helping yourself with, and the conversation becomes about general discussion and general speak, and those conversations need to be a little bit more intentional than just a general conversation. You need to be sure what you're taking out of those. When it comes to networking, for me, networking is about relationships. Relationships that are, and I'm not talking relationship as in sustained relationship, but it's making connections. So I always struggled with going to events, and they say this is like a networking event, and then you're like standing in a corner, you're having a glass of wine, and there's this conversation that goes on, and it becomes about politics, so it becomes about whatever the public discourse is at the time. And when there was a time where I was on a fellowship in the US for about 8 weeks, and I learned a lot of stuff from that. So firstly, when you go to an event, you know, people look at who's going to be at the event. And in South Africa, people are obsessed with silly things like, oh, somebody viewed my LinkedIn, somebody viewed my what, somebody viewed. When I was in the US, when I go to an event, half the people I meet at the event would have viewed my LinkedIn profile. So they know who's going to be at the event. They know what you do. They know what it's about. And when they come to have a conversation with you, it's intentional. It's specific. Wow. They want to understand a specific thing about what you do, and they'll find you in the crowd. You know, I mean, the events tend to be like a medium size, so it's quite manageable. But they'll come and find you. They'll have a conversation, or they'll inbox you, or whatever. But the conversations are always intentional. What I have also always found, especially with women, is that we get into awkward conversations that are like very general. And I see this even with some of my golf buddies. It's like talking about what you do, which corporate you're in. It's like, no, I don't want to talk about this. Like,
it's taboo.
Yeah, it's taboo. People know, but you know, it's like, it doesn't make sense. Okay, we all are trying to build ourselves. We're all trying to build careers. Have meaningful, tangible conversation. Manda, which organization are you at? What do you do? What do you not do? You know, where else you come from? Because next time you are having conversations, or next time you're trying to do a project, you will remember 10 people that are going to actually enable or open a door for you, rather than having arrived at an event, had a glass of wine, had a general talk about Mampinja proposing to Babe Soduma, and then you go home. Not very useful. So intentional conversations. I mean, one of the things I really, one of the current, and I think it's my currency in my current role, is the network that I have. You know, it's not like friends, but it's network that I have. It's my ability to assist my organization to have a good understanding and feel of what's going on in South Africa. And for me to be able to do that, I need to be able to know that I can make a phone call to this person, to this person, to this person. And if I can tell you, if there's one thing I regret about the last 7 years, which I don't think I did a lot of, but I regret every person I may have met and didn't speak to. Whether it's a journalist, whether it's an official from a department, whether it's a banker or whatever, I always make an effort. And if there's any opportunity I missed to engage with a person, it's probably a missed opportunity that I've had. So I think, you know, every opportunity to engage, say hello, chat to a person, do that. Take that business card, you know, keep it safe. If you need to follow up with a message, with a phone call, you know, without getting into the things of Jola, I think half the time people are scared of such things. Relationships are important for your network. You really need to invest your time in those and be very, very deliberate in terms of how you engage with people. And I think more than anything, even when you find yourself, you know, Dan says I was his super boss. I don't think I ever presented myself in that way. And I think one of the things that allows me to be able to go back to people is because when I interact with people, it's always from a mutual point, from a humble point, and it allows people to pick up your phone call the next time you call. So if I was this public servant that was always, you know, holier than thou, breathing down everybody's neck, I don't know if half the people would answer my call. So I think it's quite important, and don't be informed by where you are at that moment, because you don't know what, you know, the next 15 months is going to look like. Things change. You know, I can tell you stories about my transition from my other life to my, you know, my life before
your
this
current one. We want to know.
No, not I'm just saying relationships change. I mean, like Dan said, I changed from being an employee in our previous organization to a different role where the dynamics changed overnight, right? And it didn't matter for a lot of people that dynamic changed, but for people who always related to me by virtue of the powers they held, it became awkward. So respect for everybody at all times.
2 comments, right? Makgola, you talked about the super boss and stuff, right? You just reminded me.
No, you did.
The first time I came to the department and I presented to the DG and you guys, it was because of you. And then Manda, we are coming from an SOC, right? So there's all this, why didn't the board know about it and stuff? And I was like, you know what, forget it. And she gave me that platform. But anyway, the point I wanted to make around networking is this. One of my mentors, It's somebody I met through the church cell group I'm in. He told me something very interesting about networking and networking within the people you know. He says, you know, I've noticed you and you talk about networking, you go to these functions, you come to my functions. Let me tell you why your networking is poor. I said, oh, okay. And he gave me feedback without asking, but anyway, I took it. He
That's a good
says, you
mentor.
come and you spend all your time and you talk about family. So you come to me, I can get you access to anyone in the country.
Yeah.
But you come to tell me about my family, about the weather. So I said, I challenge you right now, Dan, the first 30 minutes, come and tell me what you're doing, what your pain points are. I want to know. I want you to know. I want you to tell me that we're about to fire you at work because you've done X, Y, Z. I don't want you to hide from me. I don't want you to come and pretend. He says, then your network will start working for you. He says, right now I can see you keep telling me you want to grow your network as a man, and I'm thinking, but what do you want to grow? You can't even use the current one. You have so many people you know who had varsity, who've become somebody somewhere. Do they know what your pain points are? Or you're hiding and acting like everything is all good.
Yeah.
And I thought that was very valuable because it really taught me. It says, you have a simple exercise. First 30 minutes, don't ask me about my family. Even if you've known me through that, come and tell me, I'm at work, I need this. Can you help me with this support? Even if I can't, he says it will be at the back of my mind. Absolutely. And the day when I can, the first person I'm going to think about is I need to help Dan. And it just resonated when you just said that I need to help Dan. Yeah. That the network is also just within the people we know, just knowing your story. And because they don't know the story, we think the network is a stranger who's going to give you the next deal or, I don't know, career progression.
Yes. Yeah.
No, fantastic.
No, absolutely correct.
Look, fantastic feedback. Done. We're running out of time, but let's then go to the Q&A. We can have some of the poll results coming up, or the poll. I think I've not seen as yet. The first one is from Okechi. He says, how much of your career has been molded by your good mentors, right? Do you think a different set of experiences would have greatly differed where you are now professionally?
I suppose, you know, life can lead us all into different directions. I mean, my mentors have played quite a critical roles in terms of conversations. But here, I have a lot of meetings with myself in my head. At the end of the day, as an individual, you must have those reflections with yourself and decide, you know, where is it that you want to go. But I think opportunities presented themselves whenever they present themselves, and those are the choices that I made and that have led me here. I don't think I've landed up here in any way that was very scientific. It was not. It was about sets of choices that you make, and you decide whether you're going to take a risk or whether you're going to take up an opportunity and how you want to use it. So yes, mentors are important, but ultimately, you know, you have to dream what is it that you want to do and make choices you know, of what you think will get you there.
All right.
Cool. Okay.
Fantastic.
The next question, since we were talking about the SASO story, let me take the SASO one. It says, what did you learn at SASO that changed your career trajectory? I'm a keen believer that it's important to know when something is not for you, and to make the decision early on is admirable power to you. So I think they're just trying to figure out what is it you see. If there are people in the similar position, what are they reading out there where they can actually come and say, this is not for me, let's move out. Obviously, it was 2 days, so mine was quick. Accelerated, agile response.
Yeah, SASO. Yeah, I think, you know, respectfully, there's things that I won't say on here. So, but I mean, I think I knew quite early on. I like to be engaged in environments where I work. And before I joined SASO, I had been in an environment where I was given opportunities to engage. So even at SASO, yes, I could sit in the exco, well, at least the Solvents exco meetings, I could sit there. But I was not in the thick of things, you know. So I realized quite earlier on that I sort of have a seat at the table, but I don't have a voice because I don't have any responsibility and accountability. I mean, I'm sure I could go missing from the office. No one would notice for days. So I mean, I knew it was too early in my career to be as relaxed as I was. So I made the decision that I was not comfortable, that I was not happy, no matter how much they were paying me. I mean, I got a bonus, I think, my first month. But it was not enough. I was not motivated. I was not inspired. I was, so I just decided to try out something else. So yeah.
All right, great. The next question comes from Dorcas Mudise. She says, "Hi Makgola, what was the biggest challenge you faced in the energy sector at government and prompted you to leave the presidency to join private sector?"
So, I mean, when I did entrepreneurship at Gibbs, Adrian Saville used to talk to us about push and pull factors, right? And that it's very important when you make a decision to go into entrepreneurship, because this was entrepreneurship at the time, that you're very conscious about whether these are push or pull factors. And I think for me, it was more of a pull factor than a push factor, as much as, so firstly, for me, it was a pull factor in terms of my new environment. I mean, there is risks in terms of where I am, just like any other environment, but I found the opportunity quite attractive for myself. In terms of push factors, but my point, sorry, that I first want to make is that it was more of a pull factor dominating effect than me being pushed out. I could have stayed in government as long as I wanted, but I mean, I've spent the last 5 years dealing with a whole lot of issues, but I thought it was time for me to go try out something else and give others a chance to also try it out. But for me, it was more of a pull factor really than a push factor. So I didn't leave. I was not at the presidency for start. I was at the DPE, but I didn't leave as in I was running away from government. No. But I'm still very much engaged in terms of what goes on in the country broadly. I mean, I live here, but yeah, it's what it is. I still contribute to bettering our country. The sector I'm in is quite key. Rail logistics is key in terms of ensuring that our economy thrives. So I still see myself very much as contributing and being very much patriotic.
Okay, before I ask the next question, because you actually mentioned the MBA, for people who are in core functions right now, it could be engineering, I don't know, whatever else they are doing, and they're listening to kind of the webinar, what would you say the role the MBA has played in your career? Has it played any role? Is there something where you can re-emphasize to say, look, this is how you'd actually maximize having an MBA?
I mean, first of all, so when I graduated from varsity on my undergrad, I actually started doing my MBA with EBS, Edinburgh Business School. So I graduated and then I did a finance diploma with UNISA. And then after that, I decided I had to choose. I was thinking I was doing a BCom, and then I decided to do an MBA. But I think 8 months, a year into it, I decided that I was not deriving value from that process. I was trying to do too much at a go. I mean, an MBA would have looked great 2 years into my professional training, but I felt that I was not at a space in my career where the MBA made sense. And I think firstly, because I worked in an environment that was purely operational. We didn't have P&L at power plant level where some of these things would make sense. I was not engaged in the organization at a business level where some of these concepts, would make a lot more sense to me. And I was not engaged even at a country level from just being conscious of what was going on around me. I mean, I think I was just grappling with trying to anchor myself early on in my career and understanding what I was doing. So I felt that an MBA that early in my career I could pass, I could do it, I could pass, but I didn't think I was extracting maximum value because I couldn't come back after every module and relate that to my environment. So really, it was just academic absorption that was not highly useful. So I decided to park the MBA then. And then I went back to do my MBA, I think 8 years later or so, when I was in management and some of these things made a lot more sense. I mean, I think some of these things are perceptive, and I'm sure you can read material about what an MBA is and what an MBA isn't. When I did my MBA, I was told the KIPS MBA would like increase your earnings. I don't know by how much in that year. And me and my MBA group, we always laugh. I'm like, guys, I'm still waiting for the big earnings. It hasn't come yet. An MBA alone doesn't make you a productive person. If you are lazy before you do, if you do an MBA, you are not going to suddenly become the super active and productive person. You know, it's a tool. I see it as a tool. It's like a finance degree, kind of. It's a business management degree that you get that helps you understand a business better. That helps you be able to apply yourself better in a corporate environment. But just finishing your MBA and coming back to work, I think having expectations about suddenly you're going to be top of the ladder just by virtue of walking across the stage at graduation is not sufficient. You have got to demonstrate value. And there are people who haven't done an MBA who add a lot of value in organizations, you know, but I think it's an important basic, I'll say basic degree or master's degree that helps you understand business concepts better, particularly for us who have technical degrees and have not had an opportunity to engage a business environment and some business principles.
Good.
All right,
if I can ask Kanye's question, which just came, it says, what are the common pitfalls for young professionals in corporate, in your opinion?
Nobody owes you anything. Nobody owes you anything. I think, look, we come, and maybe it links to what I've just said with an MBA. You know, you don't walk into a corporate thinking, you know, I've got a degree, and I understand, you know, we all go through life, we achieve different milestones, and we think we have reached, you know, the pinnacle of it all, and that after that it should be smooth sailing. You have got to do the work. You've got to do the work. You've invest in doing the work. You've got to have the humility to learn. You've got to be curious. You know, sometimes you arrive in an organization and you're given a corner in a chair. You know, get out of that chair and ask the person in the next chair, what do they do? Get curious, ask questions. One of the things I enjoyed in government was, like, you know, understanding the legal environment and all this other stuff that I otherwise, I mean, nothing compelled me to understand those things in a way. But you get into it, you get curious, it makes you more rounded. So invest in yourself. You know, a degree alone is not enough in today's terms. There's too many unemployed graduates. Put yourself in a position where you have a very good understanding of a business, and understand the dynamics in your business. But to be honest, nobody owes you anything. So don't go in with that perception that, you know, you have got a degree today, you've made a submission, and therefore something must happen for you. Because if you do, you're going to be hurt. Your ego, your feelings are going to be hurt every week because you are sitting there, you're waiting to be recognized, you're waiting to be acknowledged. Some of those things will never happen. You go into an environment, decide what you want to extract out of it, decide what you want to learn, and walk away.
All right. Before I ask the next question, Makgola, I've maybe just to mention some comments. Rifile Butelezi is watching on YouTube. She says, we wasted opportunities to have meaningful conversations. Thank you for bringing that up. Sindisiwe Makanya has just sent me a WhatsApp saying, she is a rare gem. I like her.
Cindy's my friend.
So those are your people right there, right? Another person that is your people is Tabiso Muraipula, who's asking a question saying, you have indeed made me proud. So well done. My question to you is, what's your view with regards to a politicized public sector rather than a professionalized sector that delivers on its mandate?
Politicized.
Do you wanna drink water for that? Do you wanna drink water for that question first?
It's just so packed. It's just so loaded, and I think I understand where Tabiso comes from. Public sector is politicized. You know, it's just what it is. But you know, I think we are at a point in our country, in particular, where we need to have conversations about meritocracy. You know, making sure that we professionalize the public service a lot more. the public entities. I think, you know, where we are, yes, we can all look back and we can make a lot of observations about what has happened in the last couple of years, but it's true. We owe it as professionals when we walk into an environment. We owe it, particularly in the public sector. If you are in the public sector, which includes state-owned companies, it's an environment where you have to serve selflessly. It's about the people. It's not about you as a person. You know, we need to demand that of our public sector and public servants, and ensure that they deliver. I mean, politics, there's no way. Maybe Sweden is a different, slightly different example where at some point they didn't have a government, but politics will always be politics. And I think we are a long way from being like a country like Sweden. I think it's the only country that hasn't even had a lockdown, where they somehow their public service is devoid of politics. But where we are, we have to push for those conversations, and we have to have the conversations around how do we think we can better have discussions around the public service, have better discussions about state-owned companies. Why do they not work? When we know half the people in these companies are people we know. Half of the people we know, they're competent. So what is that recipe? What is that cocktail of things that we need to do to ensure that these things work? Or are we at a point in our democracy where we think these things don't work and we should think differently? So yeah, I don't have a bullet answer for you, Tabiso, but I understand the difficulty and I understand what you're saying, because every day you go in, you put in the work, and maybe half the time you don't see the progress because somebody won't make a decision because it's a politicized decision. So I understand that.
Back to career pivots. How, if you have overcome a situation where you chose a mentor who turns out to sabotage your goal?
I've not come across a mentor like that. I'm very selfish when it comes to my personal development. I would not negotiate that with a person. I would not get into a dialogue with anyone that I have the slightest discomfort in terms of, you know, what they would add to a conversation or not. So, and I think that's why I was saying earlier on, it's important that you are able to understand the person that you choose as a mentor. I mean, I don't know how you end up choosing a mentor that you can't trust. The trust and you being able to be vulnerable with a mentor is what would make the relationship work or not. So I've not had a mentor like that.
Right.
And maybe just to add on to that question before we finalize, right? How would somebody choose, how do they identify a good mentor, according to you? How did you get your good mentor? What did you see in them?
I mean, so it's mostly because you've seen their journey. And I mean, there's a lot of people who will traverse journeys that you look at and you think, oh, okay, this woman has done well, this one has done this. But then second to that is, I think my mentors is people I've met through other people introduced. So it's, like I said, it's through a network, and it's through people that I know and trust, and not trust in like the cozy fashion, but it's people that I know I can have an engagement with without me feeling like, you know, I can't be vulnerable, I can't express myself fully, I can't, you know, there's certain things I can't say here because I'm going to embarrass myself. So you need to have that comfort with a mentor for you to be able to have a constructive conversation.
All right. We've done all the questions, right? Maybe there was asked one question. This would be an interesting one as we wrap up. She says, "Hi Makgola, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?"
Oh God, who asked that?
I think Maite Sako.
Oh, Maite is my deputy president at the SIEU Women's Chapter. Maite, you can ask me in our meeting next week. Where do I see myself in 5 years? I thought after COVID, you know, we live for tomorrow. You know, because it all turns out to be lies. You know, it's not that it's lies, but life is not as predictable. You know, I was laughing. I was in a leadership session in October last year at Oxford, and we were being asked to think about Africa in 2035, right? And what are the biggest uncertainties in the global environment that would impact the continent, and what should countries be thinking about in order to counter these negative effects or these uncertainties? How do you plan for them? And one of the teams actually did talk about a pandemic, and all of us thought, they were kind of cuckoos. So we always laugh about it now that, yeah, you guys can see through the crystal balls, because all of us were like climate change, dictatorship, the usual things, AI, 4IR, these are the biggest uncertainties in the Little did we know that like 6 months later, we would be hit by a virus, and not, all of those things would be meaningless. So I mean, I think it's like what Maite is asking me, where do I see myself in 5 years? I tell too many stories, but I used to have this list of 100 things to do before I die. And I found that list recently, and it says retire at 45. In 5 years time, I will be 43. So I guess I'll be planning for my retirement. And I look at it now, I look at my plans, and I'm like, very ambitious. It will take ultra sacrifices for me to retire at 45. So I mean, I'm focused on growing myself, growing as a leader, doing a lot more. I'm want to focus the next 5 years on growing my wealth. I don't think that was ever a big factor in the last 15, 20 years of my career. But I think it's one thing I really want to focus on and think about, how do I ensure that I leave a good legacy behind one day when I'm no longer youth and I have to retire and think about playing golf full time. So yeah, I don't know.
Makgola, I'll make a prediction. In 5 years, I think you would have done a pretty good job where you are, pretty brilliant. And you have the option. So I'm not going to say you're going to move to handpick which JSC company you're going to manage and run as a CEO. You'll be deciding the share is really, I mean, you're playing games to come to me. So that's a prediction for 5 years.
We must live in between. If I can live in between, and I think quality of life is quite important. I mean, I agree with you. That's very likely to happen, but we must also reflect on quality of life. We work, and we work very hard, and it's important that we work and be engaged, because otherwise your brain starts deteriorating. But for me, quality of life is quite a big focus. Quality, balanced life. It's important to get that.
All right. Thanks very much, Makgola. Yeah. Any last word, recommendation, tip you'd want to give for anyone around career pivoting?
I think it's firstly that it's not as scientific as you may think. You may be sitting in a corner and thinking somebody's doing better. It's a jungle. I mean, I think one of the terms I learned at some seminar was that careers are a jungle. We have this thing about, we think it's a linear move. You're going to progress up the ladder. This concept of a ladder. It's a jungle. If you have to make zigzag moves in your life in order to get to a different place, so be it. It's not as scientific and linear as we think about it. Explore different things, have conversations, keep your mind open. And you don't have to struggle with certain questions by yourself in a corner. Speak to people that you can trust, and be brave. Really, be courageous. Have courage. It's not always easy to walk into this environment where like 0% in an organization. It takes a lot of courage for you to do that. But you know what? We are all capable of having that courage and doing something great.
Good. No, fantastic. Fellow villager, thank you very much. I think your brain is definitely appreciating, and it feels like the longer the periods that we don't see each other, it almost feels as if you just come back with more fire. So thank you for having such a frank and open conversation. And I certainly believe that it will help somebody out there.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity to have this dialogue. I mean, I think telling our stories is quite important. Somebody's struggling with something. There's nothing unique about anybody's journey. We must all tell our stories. It will help the next person.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Manda, I think we don't have the poster for the
All right.
for the next speaker, but you know them very well.
Yes. So our speaker for next week is somebody that I've known probably for the last 15 years or so, and I think I have seen his growth in his career. And Dan, one of the things that people often make the mistake about is they believe that it's only the charismatic people who grow, right? Luvuyo is not a person of many words, but he seemed to have made quite a substantial success in his career, coming from the Cape Flats, from Mandalay in Cape Town, and to where he is. I think is a really phenomenal story, and I really encourage you to join in if you are keen on even understanding maybe the banking sector to some degree. I'm sure that he will give us some insights to that. So looking forward to having him next week.
All right. Thank you, guys. Until we see you next week.
See you next week, everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Where do I end the meeting?